Kensui's AdjustaBells aren't quite the cheapest option for adjustable dumbbells, but they're close, and they're a pretty big upgrade over the cheapest thing you can buy. The AdjustaBells are available in a nylon and aluminum variation. They can use both standard 1-inch and 2-inch Olympic-sized plates, and if you need them to, they can go pretty heavy. There's a lot to like about them, and even though I have some criticisms, it's their prices that make them so tempting. The Pros, that's the nylon version, cost $40 for a pair, and the upgraded aluminum max version costs $100. To be fair, there are a few additional accessories you may want to buy with them, like the centering adapters and longer extension screws, but if we compare them to other budget dumbbell options like Titan Fitness's loadable dumbbell handles or even Eisenlink's adjustable dumbbells, these have some distinct advantages. There are, of course, other dumbbells like this, but there are none this cheap that do what these do. But before we get into all that, full disclosure time. When I first mentioned Kensui in our minimalist gym build video, I pronounced the name wrong. I'd look at Kensui's. I'm sorry, I'm not cultured. I'm actually still not sure I'm saying it right, but I spend most of my time in my home gym testing gym equipment, talking to myself, and yelling at a camera because I can't string 4 words together without messing up. Also, while I did buy the majority of the items we'll be comparing in this video, all the Kensui items were sent for free for the review. If you'd like to support the channel, I've linked all these items in the description. If you use one of those links to make a purchase, the company will send us a small commission at no cost to you, which is how I keep up my very responsible spending ways that allow me to do these videos. So thank you so much for helping me to keep this channel going. All right. Both versions of the AdjustaBells do the same thing, even if there are some pretty dramatic and important differences between them, besides what they're made of, but we'll get to that in a minute. Side by side, you'll notice the Pros are a little bit shorter, and that's because the handle is a 1/4 inch shorter at 5 inches long, but also because the Maxes are made entirely of aluminum, so they added a UHMW pad to the collars, or to the handle, I should say, so that your plates aren't getting all scratched up when you tighten them down. The Pros don't need that because they're already plastic. The aluminum build of the Maxes also means they weigh more, but they're still pretty light. Really glad I caught that at 2 pounds per handle, including the screws, whereas the Pros are a little bit under 1 pound. And that's probably why Kensui advertises them as portable, which, I mean, is technically true, but you do need plates still, and I can't get past the thought of some guy loading his backpack up with hundreds of pounds just to go into the woods and live somewhere. The knurl on them is also different because it's much easier to machine aluminum than it is to simulate a knurl on an injection molded plastic. So the volcano knurl on the Maxes is actually really nice for this price point. I'd call it passive, but with enough bite to it that it feels really good on a dumbbell. The Pro knurl is definitely slicker, but I've rode over 100 pounds with them, and it's kind of hard to complain too much about them with them costing $40. That knurl difference is offset a little bit by the fact that the Pros have a smaller handle diameter at 34 millimeters, which makes them a little bit easier to grip versus the Maxes at 36 millimeters. And to put that in perspective, your typical fixed dumbbell is probably 34 or 35 millimeters. Those subtle differences aside, there's a few things about these I like over other budget options. The first of which is their compact shape. Unlike with other loadable dumbbell handles or spin locks, the screws don't stick out past the weights, so they're not going to affect your range of motion or get in the way during movements. The flat base of the screws also provide a smooth surface for you to prop them up or be able to set them down. I'm not sure I'd go so far as Kensui did with that sick animation they've got up on their site, but anyone who's dealt with handles that extend past the weight knows the pain and misery they can cause. If you're considering an inexpensive option like a spin lock or a cheap loadable dumbbell handle, these should definitely be on your list as well. Changing the weights on them is a pretty simple process, but it also shows us some of the advantages and disadvantages the AdjustaBells have versus other adjustable dumbbells. If you're looking for a pair of handles that can change weights quickly, these aren't it. The king there would probably be Dumbbells, which I'm not a huge fan of because of how complex and delicate they are for what they cost, or maybe Pepin's Fast Series dumbbells that use a sliding magnetic pop pin to adjust them. Those do, though, cost many times what these do, and there's always going to be trade-offs with adjustable dumbbells. One of the cool things AdjustaBells can do is use standard 1-inch size plates, or by using the centering adapter, which I've got on here, you can also put 2-inch Olympic plates on them. I've put every standard size plate I have on these, from my dirt cheap Yes For All plates to my Iron Master Quick Lock plates. And while the Iron Masters are pretty tight, they do fit. But I should point out, there's a lot of variations between manufacturers on the hole size of 1-inch standard size plates. And this threaded rod has a diameter of just under 27 millimeters. So while I haven't had any issues, they're not all gonna fit. To change weights, you just have to load up the screw, and this process is the same whether you're using 2-inch plates or 1-inch plates. You just have to decide if you want to pick up the centering adapters to help you line up the Olympic 2-inch plates. If you're an absolute animal, you don't have to use them, but they're cheap enough, and I think it makes the process easier, even if taking them on and off can add another step. Once your plates are loaded, you just have to screw the handle on. As you can see, it's not the quickest thing ever, so they're not great for supersets or if you're swapping weights pretty often like Winnie and I are, since we use vastly different weights. That's where Iron Master's Quick Locks, which are another loadable dumbbell handle that use a similar locking screw system, has an advantage, because the pin on those slides in and out, and you only need a quarter turn or a half a turn or so to lock them in. Either way, from here, you just load up the other side and then tighten the screw. You see, I don't have the centering adapter on this one. So there you go. It's all pretty easy, if not super quick. The only nitpick I've got, besides the whole process not being quick, is I'd prefer if the knurled knobs on the ends of these screws were a little bit larger, because if you really tighten these things down, it can sometimes be a little tricky to get them back off, because each screw is lined with rubber, which is great because it keeps your plates from getting scuffed up, and it also keeps everything locked in and tight, but then they can be hard to get off. Once everything is tightened, there's no rattling, and the entire thing is very secure, well balanced, and they feel very much like a fixed dumbbell. That is, as long as you're not using comically large plates, which you could do to, I don't know, impress your neighbors. But you don't need to use large plates to load these up. How much weight you can get onto a pair is based on their limitations. With the pros having a 140-pound weight capacity, that's actually 70 pounds per handle. And I do want to talk about some reservations I have on those in a second, but the maxes can go up to 300 pounds or 150 pounds per handle. The only limitation outside of that is based on the thickness of your plates, because you've got a limited real estate on these pins. With the pros being the shortest pins, the maxes being a little bit longer, and the extension screws having the largest loading capacity. If you're using thin calibrated chrome plates where a single pair costs more than the handles, then you won't have any issues. But the irony of me using these plates in this video isn't lost on me, even if it is a Kensui video. Actually, thin plates can be a little quirky if you're using a single pair of very thin weight plates. Keeping in mind, again, I'm talking about high-end expensive plates, but think something like Kensui or Rogue's USA Olympic 5s or 2.5s. Since the locking screws can't go fully into the handle, there's about a 5/8 inch gap on the pros and a 3/4 inch gap with the maxes. When using a pair of thin plates, you may be left with a small gap. You can still tighten the screws and the AdjustaBells will work fine, but that single pair would jiggle during use. That being said, most plates and even pairs of thin plates will work fine. But random tangent aside, let's get back on track with the weight capacities. The differences in the weight capacities come from the fact that the pros are made from a nylon fiberglass. Nylon is a strong plastic with a high tensile and impact strength, and adding glass fibers can significantly increase those strengths, but nylon is still the base material and it is still a plastic. While ours have been fine, you're gonna have to be gentle with them because they're not gonna survive long term if you rough with them or drop them. And you guys know I love drop testing adjustable dumbbells because nothing gets people more riled up than when you treat your gym equipment like gym equipment. But I don't need to drop the pros. The nylon screws are the weak point and will break if you're rough with them. The extension screws, which work with the Pros and the Maxes, are made of aluminum, and the Maxes are entirely aluminum, the handles and the screws. So these are going to be much more durable, and I have no reservations recommending them because I have been rough with mine, and I think they should last just about forever at any home gym, but don't mistake that for me saying I think you should be running around everywhere dropping them, which is why they're now my budget recommendation for loadable handles. I really like the AdjustaBells, specifically the Maxes, because they're a more durable and overall better dumbbell. Titan's loadable dumbbell handles were the cheapest dumbbell I've recommended for a few years now, but these are hands down my favorite, and I'd take them over spin locks or other cheap alternatives any day because they're compact, easier to find cheap plates for since they work with 1-inch and 2-inch plates, and they're an inexpensive and very high value addition to a home gym. The only issue I have with them is they're slow to change weights, and my Maxes took a while to ship, probably because they're popular budget items. So check them out in the link below and let me know what you think. We reviewed these because you kept asking us to, so let us know your thoughts on them. And check out this playlist here to see our other adjustable dumbbell reviews, and let us know if there's any other adjustable dumbbells you want to see us review. Thanks to our patrons, links in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.